Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeannie. Michael and Jeannie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1, and that puts you in queue to talk. We'd love to hear your comments and questions. We do already have a caller online, but let's first say hello to Michael.
Thank you, sweetie. And, of course, as usual, we want to honor the whole idea of Memorial Day and Veterans Day with an invitation. Our invitation is that you be part of the team that changed the world. Our invitation is that you choose to engage in the forgiveness process if you ever find yourself in any form of hostility or fear, and you take no advice from your mind until you do that. You know, oftentimes when people are in the situation where the stress is up and the chips are down, which causes the mind to go to its default hostility and fear programming, the decisions made in that situation simply replicate what's gone on through 1,000 generations of, very much insane programming. And so if we default to that, it's guaranteed we'll do something that we regret. When your mind goes into hostility or fear, threaten it with it fast, do some forgiveness work, and get out of the hostility or fear before you make a decision. And what will happen if you actually do that is that instead of making decisions, you'll start making choices. Choices are on a whole other level than decisions. Once you structure into a mind a set of decisions, a set of behaviors, and you crank up the stress in that mind, that mind will default to, or so-called mind will default to, the lowest, most emotionally impacted behavior that it's got. When you choose, if you find yourself in hostility or fear, feeling like I want to say this, I want to say, why did you say that? Well, I felt like it. Stop doing what you feel like and live by a set of principles. Here's the principle we invite you to engage in. If your mind's in hostility or fear, you do not obey it. You do not say the words that it wants you to say. You do not do the behaviors that it wants you to do, because what you'll be doing is simply defaulting to and replicating past generational behaviors. That takes you out of creatorship and means that you're basically functioning as an automaton. And you'll notice the places in your life where you function as an automaton, where you've said to yourself, well, I'm never going to do that again. And then once you made that choice, you never did that again, right? Right, yeah, sure. I believe you. Millions wouldn't. No, what happened? Once the stress was up and the chips are down, once somebody gave you the look, you went right back to that old behavior, because that's what's in there. And, if you can look back through your generations and say, every person in my generations functioned as love, they were awesome beings, they created an awesome world, well, go for the default. Of course, if you go for the default, you'll still be living in the replicate mind, which means you won't be alive. You'll just be playing out the past generations. And even if what was coming from the past generations was wonderful, is that really the purpose of life, do you think? Yeshua spoke about those who functioned out of their past generational programming as the dead buried by the dead and the blind led by the blind. If your mind goes into some form of hostility or fear, or is attracted to a teaching based in hostility or fear, choose to forgive, to remove that content, And then what shows up is choice. Now we've got a whole different game to play. And so we're here to support you and empower you in really functioning as a human being. If you don't know what a human being is, hold a newborn child. You will know exactly what a human being is. And as you function out of that awesome active presence of love, you'll introduce to your body's mind a faculty called choice. Decisions will be a thing of the past. You'll make choices. You will enter into conscious creatorship, and you'll be living a true human life. Now, the key tool, there are many, many tools we've developed, but one of the key tools that you can use for yourself, by yourself, to engage in that process is called forgiveness. And forgiveness is not about letting other people off the hook because you have some form of hostility or fear coming from your replicate mind in response to a situation in your life. Forgiveness is the tool that you go in and you remove the replicate behaviors, those things that just go on over and over and over again, and you return to living a true human life with choice. So that's what we're here to support you in. If you're not familiar with how that process works, how forgiveness works, because there is a technology, there is a methodology for doing that has been pretty much hidden for the last 2,000 years. It's totally and completely counter what the carbon-based memory system, what the body's mind says you should do. And so it takes practice and it takes work to engage in the process of forgiveness. And so if you go to our website, www.whyagain.com, on the right-hand side you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. When you click on that link will take you to a whole series of links that will give you the chapter 24 of my book, the actual worksheet process. And at this moment, there are 5 different radio shows that we've done where we've walked somebody step by step through the forgiveness process. So we invite you to engage in that process and step into living a true human life, one where the awesome active presence of love is your default state and what you function out of. So, Jeannie, that's our introduction. Do you have a caller for us?
Yes, we do. Area code 954. You're on the air.
Hello, my heart.
Well, hello, Nene. How are you, young lady?
Doing great, awesome, wonderful. Thank you.
Fabulous. I sent a reply back to you this morning on the email I got from you. And so what's happening in your world? What's on your mind this morning? Or this afternoon, pardon me.
Yeah, a couple of wonderful things. One of them is that after the communication with responsibility session we had last week in the Latin support group, a couple of people have called, and in their lives also their relationship have stirred a little bit things. And as I walked them through their steps, also for me was a great way to see that part of me that I need to forgive, and to realize that, that carbon-based memory, when we talk about this and we are in any hostility and fear, we stop for a moment and like you say, how does it look like my life? There is so much information, there is so much insight that you can take from there and forgive.
Absolutely. And, of course, when we're talking about forgiveness, lest some listeners who haven't tapped into our definition, our working definition of forgiveness, we're not talking about if I've got a part of my mind I forgive it, I let it off the hook, or what it's doing. We're talking about the tool with which you delve into that part of your mind and remove it. Remove what never belonged. So you had something, an experience to share with us that you had, Nene, did I understand?
Yes, that was Monday evening, early evening. A friend of mine and I went walking to the beach, and after a long, wonderful walk, I lay down on the towel, and I said, well, I'm going to do some breathing. And I needed breathing, and I saw a small angel, beautiful little angel, and I asked, who are you? And he said to me, I'm your guardian angel. And he comes inside of me in my chest, and he hugs me and he says, I am love in Spanish, soy amor. Okay, and then next my mother comes, and then my daughter is the next one, and my brothers and sisters, each one, they come and they say the same thing. I am love, soy amor. And I turn my head in the vision, and I see a long line of people. Everybody, the same thing, soy amor, soy amor. Then I twist again my eyes to look to the other way, and I saw so many people, and I said to myself, well, how long is it going to take for them to say and hug me? And they all became beautiful doves, and they flew.
Sounds like some pretty powerful imagery.
Beautiful. Okay, so that was around 6:30 p.m. Around 10:30 p.m., I received on Skype from my daughter, Lucia, who is in Venezuela, and she says to me, Mommy, I went to a party and I met with my Uncle Paul. He asked for you, and he told me that he really misses you and he loves you, and he's willing to turn the page and start all over, and he wants to reconnect with you, and he asked me for my number and your number. And I just thought about that angel, who said, I am love.
Right.
So for me, it's beautiful.
Is this someone you've been estranged from?
I beg your pardon?
Is Paul someone you've been estranged from?
Yeah, one of my brothers, yes. Yeah.
Oh, well, very cool.
Yeah.
Time to reconnect, eh?
Yeah. We haven't spoken in 3 years, maybe a little bit more. And for me, that was wonderful. And also, for me to have a member of my family telling me that loves me, that I understand what they mean by that they accept me, that they approve. Awesome, Michael. That was tremendous for me.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, you're getting to gather more of the fruit of your inner work, and I acknowledge you for willingly, continuously doing that work.
Yep. Thank you. So, tonight, Patricia's having a group in Fort Lauderdale, and I have the Latin support group in Coral Springs, and everybody's invited to choose and to come and continue working in this wonderful forgiveness work.
Fabulous. So 7 o'clock tonight, 6:45 people gather. You start at 7 in Coral Springs to do a Latin support group, Spanish speaking, and then Patricia will be in Fort Lauderdale doing her group. And will you be changing your nights around so that you two can coordinate on the Fort Lauderdale group? I understood you to say that the last time we talked.
Yeah, that was an idea, but Patricia wants to remain by herself, which is fine. So I'll continue doing the Latin group and then create another group for English speaking as well. There's a lot to spread, and I welcome everybody, and all the ideas may be flourished.
Fabulous. Well, you absolutely have our support, and anybody that wants the address for Coral Springs or for Fort Lauderdale, just go to www.whyagain.com and look under support groups, and you'll see what's there.
Yes.
Very cool.
Well, thank you. And like Maria, my friend Maria Colmenares says, that there is a price for healing, of course. But remaining without healing, the price is our lives. So I encourage everybody.
Say it again. I couldn't quite understand what you said. Say it again, what Maria says.
There is a price for healing.
Yes.
There is a price for healing. Time and doctor no feel good and all that. But remaining unforgiven, the price is our lives.
That's what it is. Absolutely. She's right on with that. And it's cool to watch. It's cool to watch how she's doing her work. All right, sounds like the horns are blowing there. They want you to move, so we'll be in touch. And thank you for blessing us with what's happening in your world.
Amen. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Oh, here comes the rain. Here comes the rain. We are in Gainesville, Florida. Actually, I'm going to be heading
we're in
out
High
of here.
Springs.
Or, pardon me, High Springs, Gainesville. It's kind of pretty close to the same. And I'll be heading out of here tomorrow to head to, let's see, where are we going? Wilmington, North Carolina, Unity Center in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'll be doing the Sunday service or services there. And why is this happening to me again in the afternoon? Then Monday, Tuesday workshops. And then I'll be on the road heading to Greensboro, North Carolina. We'll be at Unity in Greensboro on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We're planning a Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing workshop, but the church didn't have space to do it, so we'll be picking up or looking at another location that's going to be announced if we have enough people to do the Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing. So I'll be doing that, and actually Jeannie's going to stay right here in High Springs and work with Daniel and Susan on getting our new website functional. We're getting more excited by the minute as Daniel and Susan share what they've done and how they're revamping and putting in all kinds of new neat technology and things that will be happening with the website. So keep an eye on whyagain.com, and it will be telling you about when the switch, perhaps next week by Thursday when Jeannie flies out of here up to Tennessee, we'll have the new website live. So that'll be, you're going to have a treat when you see what all the years of work that Jeannie's put into the website turns into with this new technology and facelift and upgrade. It's pretty cool, the technological aspect of it. So, Jeannie, do we have any other callers or anything happening in the chat room?
No, but Dr. Tim is with us.
Well, Dr. Tim, how do you be, sir?
Doing very well, thank you. It's great to hear from Nene and that things are still moving for her and she's getting more and more benefits from the work. Just delightful.
Yes.
And to think that it was just a year and a half ago that she got introduced to it.
Yeah, what Nene has done in a year and a half is just amazing. She's really taken a hold. I know she didn't tell us today what her worksheets are up to, but it's somewhere around 2,200 or so that she's done since January 2nd last year when she came to her first workshop in Fort Lauderdale.
And just like the audio show with Lynn, it's a powerful demonstration of what happens when you have the willingness and the honesty and you just pick up the tool and start using it. It's just amazing.
Exactly. And it's interesting to watch when folks find it and get excited about it and then get, kind of locked back into their inertia-bound minds. And it's like, oh, well, I desperately want my life to change, but I've got too much. I'm too busy. I forgot I had to write a letter to my great-grandmother 5 years ago. I need to write that instead of do my work. And it's just too complicated. I can't do it. I can't figure it out. Just a myriad of excuses for why I can't put the pen to the paper and do a simple thing like start to face and remove what's in my own dissociated mind. It's amazing how people can get drawn into that. And one of the reasons for doing the radio show is to keep you inspired to do your work and to invite others to participate in the process of healing ourselves, each other, and the planet, and moving this whole game toward critical mass. And that is the critical mass of healing.
There's a gentleman who runs a retreat center out in upstate New York where it's more than just a retreat center. It's actually a place where people go to live. They actually set up a community up there, and all these people who want to reach spiritual enlightenment. And a lot of people go there because they've had the thought that, if I could just find a place where I could dedicate the time to this and my work that I got paid for was in line with the spiritual work I was doing and I had a community of support, I could really get something done. I could reach enlightenment. So people go there. And one gentleman who was there for, I think it was somewhere between 8 and 11 years, And he said, and it was perfect. I mean, you get time to do your work. You get support from the community. You get, this whole raw vegetarian food, so your vitality is up. And he said, it's absolutely amazing how everybody there says they want to be enlightened, and yet nobody there wants to change.
Yeah, it's all their fault, and if they just changed, then I'd be enlightened.
Right. He said when people get pushed, he said I had the same thing happen to me, and people would get pushed to look at their stuff, and the summary quote of it is, everybody wants to be enlightened and nobody wants to change.
Yeah.
And one of the things that has to happen in the reality management process, in this forgiveness process, is I have to say, I give up trying to be right. I give up holding on to all of the stuff that I've held on to before because I thought, even though it hadn't worked the last 189 times I'd done it, it might work the next time. Because it's got a really good logical structure behind it, and it seems like it should work when I think about it. I have to be willing to give that up. And I have to be, as you say, in order to heal, you've got to be out of your mind. You've got to get out of the logical, rational line, because at some point in time you have to realize if the answer to your problem was in the logical or conscious realm, you would have found it already. You would have found it the last 37,000 times you went at this problem. But the answer isn't in the field of the mind that created the problem. The answer is never what you think it's going to be. The answer is getting free of everything I've built to try to protect myself and identify with and hold on to, and just to be willing. That's that term you call cosmic grease. Be willing to let go and ask for help from a greater, more integrated source, and watch what I get shown about myself. I like to...
I'm willing to look.
Pardon me?
If I'm willing to look.
Yeah. I like the way Guy Finley talks about it. He says the only thing that stops any person from achieving anything they have in the intent to achieve is what they have yet to learn about themselves.
Yeah, and that need to be right. It's you'd bring to mind Dr. Andraki, he calls into the show once in a while. He's a medical doctor out in Pahrump, Nevada, who actually writes prescriptions to people to do forgiveness work. And just about every time I talk to him, he'll share with me about an issue with somebody, a patient that he's working with, or what have you. And it's just kind of become a joke between us. He'll say, it's really interesting. In the whole conversation, all they wanted to do was be right. Have you ever seen that before, Michael? The whole thing they want to do is just be right. Have you ever seen that before, Michael? And it's just it's so laughable, because that rational mind just wants rationalize, and until you realize that if you're in pain, your mind is lying to you, and you got to tell that sucker to shut up. You got to quiet it, and the way you quiet it is through forgiveness. And the tendency is going to be to keep playing the game of, well, I have a story about why I'm right. And it doesn't matter if I've said, I love you, I honor you, I cherish you so much, and you've done so much for me. When the stress is up and the chips are down, and you need somebody to blame, you'll take that very person, and you'll make up a whole story out of your content, and you'll actually believe that your story about them is true about them instead of being true about you. And that's this game of opposite of truth.
One of the powerful things that you bring out in the codependence to interdependence lecture is the power person dynamic, which helps to explain this very, very clearly. Because when I am so young and so vulnerable and completely dependent upon my parents for my survival, when my parents are not coming from that space of love, they're demonstrating, here's how I win. I yell louder, I act more forcefully, I deny that you might be right, and I assert that I'm right at all costs. And so here I am as the vulnerable, dependent person looking up to this person that I consider basically God. You know, I need to rely on this person for my survival. And how does God win? By insisting they're right and yelling louder and being more physically forceful. And so I learn from masters this process of insisting I'm right and holding on. And so I associate that process with surviving. And so it is scary. It's scary, even as an adult, for me to say, okay, I give up the need to be right, because I'm programmed to think, I'm not going to survive unless I'm right.
Exactly. And, you know, it's interesting, while the power person dynamic can be, and what I do is I yell louder, or I beat on somebody, or I'm verbally, physically, emotionally abusive, the same power person dynamic can be integrated and will drive our behavior decades later. When the power person's dynamic was, well, what I do in order to control you is I withdraw, I pout, I stop speaking, I stop communicating. That can be just as powerful a power person dynamic as beating or yelling or raging at somebody. It's exactly the same. It's not limited to any behavior. If there's a point at which your power person is functioning in a space that's less than love, whatever behaviors they do to control that little being will become the behaviors that little being, until they crack open their dissociated mind and forgive that dynamic, that little being all its life, 10, 20, 30, 50, 70, 80, 90 years later, that's what that mind will tell that person they have to do in order to survive. So if it's withdraw and, stop communicating, then that's exactly what that internal dynamic will cause one to feel is the way to win or survive. And, of course, anything that's based in hostility or fear, anything that takes away our power of choice and the presence of being is insane, and it destroys us. And so these patterned behaviors go on generation after generation after generation. And, of course, this isn't a new insight on the planet. You can go all the way back to the Old Testament and the story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years. And what did they say had to happen to get out of the desert, which is just a code word for being and functioning unconsciously out of power person dynamics? What did they say had to do? The old generation had to die off. Not everybody in old physical bodies, but rather the power person dynamics, the behaviors that were used to control you, the behaviors that when the stress is up and the chips are down, take over and run you. And that's where the forgiveness needs to be applied. And, when you listen to Yeshua, he talks about, I come to bring a sword to separate father from son, mother from daughter. He's not talking about a war-type sword. He's saying that I've come to give you the tools with which to unloose yourself, to let yourself free of the power person dynamics of your family that control you and keep you out of your true being. Our goal here is to support each person on the planet coming back to the place where they experience themselves as this awesome active presence of love, rather than an accumulation of 1,000 generations of power person dynamics that when the stress is up and the chips are down, simply take over. And for anybody who, doesn't quite grasp what we're talking about, we talk about the three behaviors related to the power person. And for anybody who's functioning out of what we call the body's mind or carbon-based memory, who's functioning unconsciously, there are basically three behaviors possible, and the behaviors that relate to the power person. And the thing that determines which behavior is keyed in is the level of stress. And so just take a look at your life and look at the behaviors that were done by and with your power person, and notice that when there's no stress in your life, you'll do whatever you did to get along with your power person. That will be just the standard option. And then when stress starts to build, you'll click out of that and you're going to doing whatever you did to resist and survive with your power person. And then when you become ultra-stressed, you'll do whatever your power person did that you hated the most. And so when you see yourself under stress and you start to observe your behavior, start to ask yourself the question, how did it feel when my power person did this behavior with me? that will start to crack open and give you an opportunity to look at those dynamics from a whole new perspective and to begin to dismantle or forgive those dynamics. And, these behaviors are so subtle and they've been going on for so long that it's not a simple ABC task to move beyond them. It takes a really committed, connected level of work to do it. And, of course, a little support from your friends is always good. So I agree with you, Tim, and it's definitely awesome to watch it when people start to get that set of tools and they start to apply it and actually use it, as opposed to make all the excuses possible for not doing it. And
as you just hit on there, we're talking about how it can be very scary to turn against the conditioning of my mind and to be willing to give up the need to be right, and that's where the power of the love and support that comes out of support groups or any kind of a support team really comes into play. And
absolutely.
That's why we have to strongly recommend that people find a support group or start their own. It doesn't take a great deal of expertise. It just takes that willingness. And as we've demonstrated, and there's so many examples on your website, sometimes in the very first worksheet, people see the power of the process, maybe not a powerful transformation in their life, but how an insight can pop in, and minutes after having been in a strong state of rage or fear, they feel completely different. They feel relief, or they feel an entirely different emotion, and they have an insight. And we just want to encourage people to take advantage of this process that's free. Of course, it has some, as Nene was saying, her friend was saying, that there is a price for healing, but it's nowhere near as intense as the price for failing to heal, which is your actual human life is the cost for failing to heal.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, Jeannie, do we have any callers or anything happening in the chat room?
We actually have Heartland on the phone. So, area code 352, you're on the air.
352, welcome to the show.
It should be Mary Lou.
352. It just looks like it's a Florida area code, but it's Mary Lou from Heartland.
Right, cool. Awesome. Good to hear your voice.
And my buddies are here. We're all sitting around. We've had a beautifully cool morning, and started with a lovely meditation. And I really don't have anything to check in with except that it's my phone, so I felt the urge within me to be responsible. Okay, 3 worksheets right there. So I'd like to shut up now.
Very good. Well, there's nothing like uncovering opportunities to learn forgiveness, for sure. So anybody that's on the team at Heartland, and for those who are new to the show, Heartland is our teaching center in the Ozarks in southern Missouri, and Mary Lou and several folks are there getting the property ready and getting things in shape for our summer intensive season, which actually the prequel to the summer intensive season will start on July the 12th. There'll be a 10-day kind of an economy program that we do where we work on work projects during the day to get the property ready, and then in the evening we'll do workshops. And Ari will be there doing some awesome food. If you listen to last Monday's show, if you want to know something about the food component of it, the 10 days is actually called Food, Fun, Forgiveness, and Work Project. And the food component is going to be absolutely awesome. Listen to that show. And I haven't heard back from Ari about when he's going to be available to do another show on what we'll be doing. But there are actually 2 shows in the archives you can listen to, and they'll tantalize your taste buds and get you ready for the 10-day. And then once we finish that 10 days, which starts on July the 12th, we'll take a day off, and then the next day, that day will be used to get things ready for the arrival of the intensive participants. And we'll start a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. If anybody's ready to take your work to the next level, then tap in, give us a call, and register for that workshop. And the morning we complete that 9-day, in the evening, we'll move right into a second component of that session, and that will be the actual teacher's training part. So we have a 17-day teacher training. The prerequisite to the 9-day component of the teacher's training is the 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again. So for people who come to do the whole 17 days, we'll be doing that teacher's training. And for those who've already done another 9-day at another time, they can come and do the 9-day teacher training, that second half. So if you're ready to take your work to the next level, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you join us for an intensive at Heartland. So anybody on the team there that's listening have any questions for us, any refinements on any of the tools or any of the process that's happening there, any way that we can support you? I see everybody looking around the room at each other, and we'll see if anybody's going to say anything, and if not, we'll just say thank you for checking in, and we're delighted that you're here. And we're delighted that you're there, actually. And we'll be heading in that direction soon.
Looking around, everybody's looking around. That's about all we're doing. So,
okay.
We're welcome Chuck in. He's hanging out. He stopped by.
Oh, hey, Chuck, welcome.
Howdy.
Glad to hear your voice. Look forward to seeing you soon. I can only imagine, Chuck, that your new home there will be such a transformed place from what we saw when you first took it over when we were still there that we'll hardly recognize it. From what I heard, all the trees and plants you've been doing and what you've been doing with the house, I really look forward to seeing what the space you and Magda have created looks like.
That looks pretty good outside. Inside now, we haven't got to that yet.
Not finished on the inside yet, eh?
Oh, wait. Oh.
And has the process given you and Magda any opportunities to learn forgiveness?
Nah, not at all.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing it. And Jeannie, do you have any callers for us or anything happening in the chat room?
No, nothing else going on.
Okay. Well, one of the things I'd like to address is what it is that causes us to go into these power person dynamics and why the forgiveness process is so important to do on an ongoing basis if you want to change the dynamics of your life. You'll remember when I talked about the 3 behaviors related to the power person. You can hear the crows overhead here. I'm sitting outdoors under a huge, I'm not sure, it looks like an oak, maybe a pin oak tree. And we're in High Springs, Florida. In any event, the thing that causes us to go into these power person dynamics is stress. And most people don't even have a clue how stress is created. Not even the stress experts know how it's created. They can say, well, take a few deep breaths and relax, and then things will get better. But by taking a few deep breaths and relaxing, you can change the state of your physiology, but it doesn't necessarily change your stress level. When you know what creates stress, then you know what it is that drives you deeper into the power person dynamics. And, when we said the 3 behaviors, no stress, you do what you did to get along with your power person. Stress starts to build, you do what you did to resist and survive with your power person. Become ultra-stressed, you'll do what your power person did that you hated the most. What causes stress? Well, you'll notice that when you have no goals in the moment, you're pretty relaxed, things are cool, the mind is quiet. Once you load a goal in your mind, once you roll the second goal, once you load a third goal, a 4th, a 5th, a 10th, a 20th, once you get to the point where you've loaded more goals into your mind than you can possibly handle in the next waking period, your mind will go into excessive levels of stress. And you'll notice that the essence of forgiveness is the canceling of goals. When you load a goal into the mind, you use up a certain number of resources, and in using up those resources, once you've used up all the resources that there are, then the mind starts to default to its deeper levels of programming. And if anybody's ever procrastinated, I'll invite you to notice that when you were procrastinating, it was when you had too many goals that you could not complete, whether those goals were conscious or unconscious. And so when somebody starts loading the goal to, get the kids off to school and answer the correspondence in the email and to get the database done and to get the lunches ready and to make sure that the 27 phone calls have been returned that came in, and to make sure that the office is open on time, and to make sure that the employees are there and doing their jobs, and on and on and on. Each one of those things creates a stress. And the deeper one goes into stress, the more likely they are, when something violates a goal for them, to go into the next level of the power person dynamic. And ultra-stressed, every little thing, like the smallest thing, somebody's, got all these goals going on in mind, and they're driving down the highway, and the light in front of them is green, and they're like, yes, I'm going to get through this and get to the office on time to get this done. And all of a sudden the light turns yellow, and they're forced to stop. And they just explode. Why did they explode? Because something violated a goal that they held in their minds. With the violation of that goal, the mind goes into the deeper power person dynamics until over something like, something simple, not cooperating. Gee, I went to pick up a stack of things and I fumbled something and dropped it, and I went into a fit of rage over it. Well, why did you go into rage? Well, you had 87 goals behind you, and the goal was for that piece of paper you dropped to cooperate. Literally, you've got a goal for the piece of paper to cooperate so that you can get moving on to the next thing. And if you go into a fit of rage over something simple, a totally disproportionate thing, then what happens is, as you engage in the forgiveness process, which in essence is the canceling of goals, when I do something as simple as the counterintuitive thing or the counter carbon-based memory thing of, I cancel my goal for that piece of paper that's on the floor now to cooperate and help me to get about my day. As I cancel that goal, I have a keyway. By the canceling of that goal, I have a keyway into the part of my mind that is being resonated by these goals, and that part that holds some form of hostility or fear. So by clearing away the upset around which what appears to be the act of a silly piece of paper, or the act of a light going down the street, or the person who cuts me off, or the child who, here we've got this kid who has no idea what its parents' goals are or its parents' life is about. It just knows that here it is sitting in the living room. Yes, it's time for school, but there's an ant here, don't you know? And this ant and the way that it's building its nest is what's really feeding my learning and my soul right now. And Dad, Mom, you want me to go to school. No, this is what's feeding me. I'm going to go into an artificial environment with all other kids the same age, Johnny who gets beat every day at home, Mary who hasn't had enough to eat and is wearing such tattered clothes and cries all the time, and on and on and on. And you want me to go do that instead of watch this ant. And so the child resists the instruction to get ready for school. The parent, having the goal to be at the office on time because they've got a whole list of goals for the day, is now overstressed. It goes into a rage at the beloved child. What the hell happened? Well, what happened is the child violated a goal that you had loaded into your mind that linked to a part of your mind that holds hostility or fear. And the hostility or fear comes up, takes over, and becomes behavior toward the beloved child. Now, the parent who does that regularly, after the stress goes away, after things quiet down, they're in remorse and sorrow at what they've said and done to their child and know how terrible that was. But because they don't understand their own mechanism, they have no idea how to stop that from happening again tomorrow morning or the next morning. When if they were to simply stop, cancel the goal for the child to cooperate, they could start to see the part of them that goes back to the power person dynamic of when they were 4 and they were sitting watching an ant build its nest. And Dad raged at them because they weren't being fast enough to get out and get in the car or whatever. These dynamics tend to go on generation upon generation. And when you engage in the forgiveness process, you come into contact with those deeper, hidden parts of your mind. You know, many people think they lived such enlightened lives, and yet they never touch more than 5% awareness of what's going on inside of them. And they do everything they possibly can to never look at the dynamic that's going on inside of them. The pain of the 3-year-old who was verbally and perhaps physically beaten because they were watching an ant colony instead of rushing off to school like the parent wanted them to, passes on the rage to their 3-year-old 40 years later, and they wonder what happened. Forgiveness is what intervenes, is what injects sanity into our worlds and allows us to delve into that 95% content that holds the hostilities, the fears, the rages, the griefs, the pains of 1,000 generations, and allows us to behave out of something other than that. The key is to cancel those goals. And most people say, I'm too stressed to cancel my goals. Yeah, but you didn't know that it was goals that caused your stress, did you? They have no clue how their own mechanism operates. You go back to the ancient teachings and they said, for a lack of knowledge, my people have been destroyed. And when you start to acquire knowledge about how it is that you operate, then you get the opportunities to start to delve into deep, ancient pains that most people have strived and perhaps lived their whole lives to rise above and pretend we're never there. And then, in the moment of extreme stress, they simply pass the behavior on to the next generation, all the while condemning themselves and hating themselves for it. So what we're looking to do is to invite each person to say, I'm going to take the time to cancel the goal that resonates or links to my hostility or fear, and I'm going to delve into that 95% of my mind that's hidden and to undo that hostility or fear, that generational pattern, that cultural pattern of hostility or fear. And I'm going to return to functioning. I see this awesome presence of love that my newborn child is, and I'm going to function as that awesome presence to support that in them rather than play out the hostility and fear dynamics of my generation. That was called coming out of the desert, to undo the patterns of the generation. You know, that the old generation had to die off to get out of the desert had nothing to do with people in old physical bodies physically dying. They were saying that the old generational patterns have to be removed. And it takes great courage to look into what perhaps in 1,000 generations in your bloodline has never been looked into, to embrace those dynamics, to become big enough to embrace those unconscious dynamics and to heal them in yourselves so that they're no longer passed on, so that they are literally their energetic presences and presence, that is the energetic presence of those unconscious dynamics, is loosened, it's softened by each person who chooses to go in and do their work. And so that's what we're here to support you in. And our call-in number is 1-800-4169. We would love to hear your sweet voice with your questions about worksheets, questions about any of the tools that we teach. And, of course, if you want to access more of the tools, there are 15 different DVDs in our collection on the website. You can go in and order those and start to work with the tools, each and every one of them, very powerful in their own right as a way of disassembling this dissociated mind and bringing healing to it. So, Jeannie, any callers, any questions in the chat room?
Question. No, what?
You're kind of cutting out a little bit, honey. Could you say that again? Oh, David's here. Hey, David, how are you, sir? You got your mute button on, David? Are you with us?
No, I know to turn my mute button off. So, yeah, I'm here. The crew is sitting and listening, and we're just listening.
Okay. You have any thoughts for us? Questions, answers, ideas? Anything exciting to share?
Well, no, I think that it's up to the group. I go right back to what I talked about what the radio station is for, and from my perspective, and what the support team is for. To me, it's about people asking for support and are giving the support. And so I'm always at my place is who's going to talk, who's going to bring it up. It's your meeting, it's your radio show. What do y'all want to talk about? If no one's going to talk about it, it's not much sense in having it. That's my perspective with that. It's like if you're on the phone listening, keep talking about it. The only way that anything even shifts is to do something different. So I'm eagerly waiting for people to do something, take some action, participate. And yes, is there participation by just being there? Certainly is. And so I'm eager. I'm eager to hear what people have to say, how they've applied it in their life, what it is that they're doing, what it is that they want to learn. Otherwise, we can have this intellectual conversation all the whole time. It only happens, it only really applies when people apply it. So that's where I'm at, eager to hear some new stuff out there, new people. Say something, see what's going on. Stir something up.
So anyone have anything to share? Dr. Tim, do you have anything to share with us?
I have a caller.
Oh, Jeannie says we've got a caller. Let's tap into the caller.
607, you're on the air.
Hey, it's Richard in Ithaca. How is everybody?
Well, hey there, Richard in Ithaca. We are doing well, thank you.
Well, I'm in the process of basically, starting to retire from work and my work job, and starting to downsize a little bit and giving up some responsibilities. And so it's been a challenge because there's some issues definitely come up in that process. And certainly I heard you talking about the power dynamics coming up, and I certainly had something come up for me. I think I've talked about my propensity to be, I realized that I've had a lot of trauma in my life, so I have the tendency to be in the fight, flee mode. And it came up recently for me again. And but the good news is that I'm recognizing it. I'm seeing that I'm seeing the pattern now, and so I think that's
awesome.
Good news for me. And again, without the work, the worksheets, and listening to you, and in the most recent incident, I realized I had done something that I had hated the power person did to me, and it's like, oops, there I go again. And but again, the fact that the worksheets are there helping me see what's going on, I can't express my gratitude to you for teaching your work and hopefully I will learn a lot during teachers training this year so I can teach the work myself, because this is so valuable in terms of helping people deal with their individual lives and emotions and whatnot. So especially in terms of, even if you do fail and do something you regret, at least the good news is you don't have to belabor it and beat yourself up about it. You can quickly get through that process with the worksheet, recognize what happened, and take a step towards healing. So I just, again, can't say thank you enough for the work, and looking forward to learning more and being there in Heartland for a month myself.
Well, that's awesome, Richard. And, if folks, if you want to tap in and listen to the second link for a radio show where we walk through a worksheet, we actually walked through one with Richard. And, Richard, I acknowledge the last several times that we've talked that each time there's an issue up for you, you talk about you rather than focus on somebody else, wanting somebody else to do something. And how in that worksheet, the whole conversation was, I'm in pain, and then you went into talking about them rather than about yourself. And we, had to pull you back. And now you live there. Each time I talk to you and there's an issue up, you talk about you rather than, focusing on the energy on somebody else. And you recognize where you have an issue that you're willing to work through, and you're moving it. And that's so monumental. Like, what a change. That probably hasn't been seen in your bloodline, and I'll add, or mine, in 1,000 generations. So what a powerful shift and change. And then, for someone at your tender age to be retiring and saying, I'm ready and I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to learning and teaching forgiveness. It's awesome. It's just absolutely fabulous to have you on the team and moving in that direction and watching the work you're doing. It's just really powerful.
Well, thank you. And again, I'm looking forward to being there for our time, and can't wait to get there. Cool.
Well, anything else to share with us? Any questions around any of the process or tools?
No, but your conversation today about canceling the goal was really good, because again, you're saying that the reason that people become frustrated was they have too many goals on their plate, and they can't seem to get where they want to go, and that creates the frustration and the turmoil in their lives. And canceling the goals and allowing the mind to just deal with one thing at a time is really good. Or even canceling everything, so that you, I think, I don't know who said this, but something about it's good to give the mind something to do because it gives it something to do. But you can't have too many things to do on its plate at one time. It really can only do one thing at a time in some respects. But then on the other hand, the calculating mind, the mind that we give, when we give it a challenge to do, the mind is a stupid thing, It's like a computer. You tell it to do something, it starts making the calculations to figure out whatever it's going to do. Well, the mind is somewhat similar. If you give it a chore to do, it's going to try and figure out what to do in order to make it happen. And until you cancel the goal, it's going to keep chugging away until it sees what it wants to see happen. So in some respects, canceling the goal is really good, because then once you cancel that goal, you're not listening to the output from the calculating mind, and you can live more in the God mind, as I would say it. That's it.
That's where we want to go. And we're down to about 45 seconds, so we're going to need to close the show out. And so we just invite everybody to bring a stranger with you tomorrow, and we'll look forward to hearing from you on how you've created the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeannie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeannie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.